Hashem told you to dance in a tango contest?
A dancing teacher wants to tango with you?
No!
Critics are raving about Tango Shalom. It's clever and inventive, with right chemistry on and off the dance floor.
You're a lunatic!
A funny and thoughtful family film with a warm heart and a playful spirit. From the director of My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh, that's my Fernando.
Tango Shalom. In select theaters this week.
Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, your existential Mr. Rogers, and today, the producer-editor of Tango Shalom, opening in theaters in Los Angeles and in New York. And I just found out, I can't say where, but it's opening in even more places in a week, which bodes well for everyone. I'm Rob casting you imagination connoisseurs, and cheers to you all. This is a great day for us. It was a long time coming for me. It's always nice to have product in the theaters. And if you're not going to go see Shang-Chi and you're in New York City and you want to stay out of the rain, go to the Empire 25 or the Village East by Angelica and see Tango Shalom. Support your boy R&B here and support independent cinema. So it's very exciting. I've got a special guest coming on in a little bit. We're going to talk some stuff. So before I talk to him, however, I want to share with you, obviously, Dune had its world premiere at the Venice International Film Festival, and for the most part, there's a lot of people raving. There's a few people not. I want to start with this first story about what happened. What happened in Venice? And let's just jump right in. Dune spices up Lido with 7-minute standing ovation. Nancy Tartaglione published this today at 12:45 p.m. Actually, it was published today. Denis Villeneuve's Dune had its official world premiere here at the Venice Film Festival on Friday evening and had the Sala Grande reverberating like an ornithopter, as it gave the adaptation of Frank Herbert's 1965 sci-fi classic a 7-minute standing ovation. Deadline was present and timed the applause, which ended only after the director humbly indicated that it was time to go. In his review, Deadline's Pete Hammond called the film a spectacular and defining version of the sci-fi classic. I think it was The Guardian gave it 5 stars. The Warner Brothers' legendary epic, which is billed as Part 1, played earlier in the day for the press, with delegates asked to seal their phones inside plastic pouches for the duration of the screening. Villeneuve and cast sped into Lido today as well, with throngs of onlookers occupying every possible vantage point in the hopes of catching a glimpse. Those in town include Timothée Chalamet, who plays protagonist Paul Atreides, along with fellow stars Zendaya, Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem, Sharon Duncan Brewster, Dave Bautista, Stellan Skarsgård, and Chang Chen. A tale of warring families, inhospitable landscapes, and giant creatures. Arrival Oscar nominee Villeneuve's adaptation of Dune splits the complex 400-plus page novel in the middle, focusing the action in this first half on establishing the dense lore and specifically on the young Paul, son of a ruling house whose fate the series tracks. Warner Brothers releases the film domestically on October 22nd, day and date in theaters and on HBO Max, with international rollout beginning September 15th. Very, very exciting. Look, people seem to like it. Not everyone loves it, but I did want to cover a few other takes on Dune, so allow me to share those with you. This next article comes from the New York Times. By the way, as a shout out, of the male gaze, if I may. I have to say that Zendaya, no, I mean, not to be a dirty old man, but how more could she look lovelier? I don't think so. Give it up for Zendaya and Tom Holland. Good man. Anyway, so here's what the New York Times has to say. Venice Film Festival, Dune leaves us with 3 big questions. After watching the world premiere, our columnist has a better idea of the risks and expectations as the film heads to the box office and awards season. This is by Kyle Buchanan. It was written today at 1:08 p.m. The spice must flow, but will audiences go? Denis Villeneuve's highly anticipated Dune premiered Friday at the Venice Film Festival, an unusual place to debut a sci-fi franchise starter that cost upward of $160 million. Then again, Dune is not your typical tentpole. It's something dreamier and weirder. A movie that straddles the line between auteurist art film and studio blockbuster so provocatively that even after watching it, I can't quite predict how Dune will fare when it comes out in theaters and on HBO Max on October 22nd. When I left my screening, the first critic I spoke to was totally besotted. The second fled the theater as if Villeneuve had planted a bomb there. Still, after a decade of Marvel movies made with high-level craftsmanship but few formal risks, it's bracing to get a movie of this scale that takes such big artistic swings. Here are 3 questions that kept swimming around in my head after watching it. Can Dune become a big screen hit? Though Dune is based on a classic sci-fi novel by Frank Herbert, adaptations of it have hardly set the world on fire. David Lynch's 1984 adaptation was a famous disaster that the director disavowed, while 2 miniseries adaptations were more notable for stuffing wonky blue contact lenses into the eyes of a young James McAvoy than for inspiring any significant pop culture reaction. But Dune has strong bones, and they've been picked over considerably since Herbert's novel was published in 1965. So, the story might feel familiar now. A young man, Timothée Chalamet, is sent to an exotic planet that is being mined for a valuable natural resource, in this case the hallucinogenic spice, but he eventually decides to throw in his lot with the indigenous folk and fight back against their well-militarized oppressors. Yes, that's basically the same plot as Avatar, and hey, maybe that's a good thing. After all, Avatar was a record-setting blockbuster, and while Chalamet is new to leading this type of movie, Villeneuve has surrounded him with a cast of veterans. Jason Momoa, Dave Bautista, and Josh Brolin have all done their time in the superhero salt mines. Oscar Isaac is fresh off a Star Wars trilogy, and Rebecca Ferguson has become the leading lady of the Mission Impossible franchise. So if many other tentpole films have stolen from Dune, the least Dune could do is steal something back. Still, with that pedigree, Dune faces some significant obstacles. The film finished principal photography over 2 years ago and was originally set for release in November of 2020 until Warner Brothers decided to delay the film for nearly a year. The expectation was that the push would place Dune in a post-COVID film landscape. The reality is that continuing havoc wreaked by the Delta variant has movie studios spooked enough to shove some major releases like Top Gun Maverick into 2022. In some ways, this could be a good thing for Dune. With fewer brand-driven blockbusters in the marketplace, Dune could stand out and draw curious viewers who are eager for something big to watch. But to Villeneuve's vocal consternation, the film will also premiere on HBO Max at the same time it bows in theaters, which could cut into box office receipts and threaten the odds that a sequel will be greenlit. It could affect the first round of buzz, too. The audience that will go see Dune in theaters is more inclined to be invested in it and will experience its visual and sonic pleasures on the biggest possible scale, while the bored, curious, and unfamiliar who click over on HBO Max may not be as partial to Villeneuve's mise-en-scène. The first significant action sequence, a sandworm attack, doesn't arrive until an hour into the movie. Are at-home audiences going to be as willing to see things through as people who eagerly paid for their own tickets? Will Dune be a major Oscar player? Part of what's so striking about Dune is that Villeneuve has a sense of texture that's rare among big-budget filmmakers. When a character falls in battle, Villeneuve is besotted with the way the man's eyelashes flutter as he dies. And during the assault on a character's compound, the camera drifts from the action to show us magnificent palm trees that have been set aflame, their leafy crowns now a starburst of destruction. Though sci-fi movies can sometimes be a hard sell with Oscar voters, I suspect that Villeneuve's distinctive eye will distinguish Dune, as the movie looks undeniably ravishing. A ton of below-the-line nominations are guaranteed, including Greg Fraser's cinematography and the production design by Patrice Vermette. The score by Hans Zimmer, sound and editing are all more daring than this genre usually allows. The aural soundscapes and artsy cross-cutting feel almost designed to draw you into a spice-induced trance. And I haven't even gotten to the fashion. The costume design by Jacqueline West and Bob Morgan is a stunner, and especially during the first hour of the film, with Rebecca Ferguson wearing outrageous space nun sheaths and a veiled Charlotte Rampling dressed like the Green Knight in Gautier. Dune can seem like a moody, high-fashion shoot that occasionally includes spaceships, and I mean this as a good thing. Villeneuve's last film, Blade Runner 2049, scored 5 Oscar nominations and won its cinematographer Roger Deakins a long-overdue Academy Award. Still, the movie couldn't break into the top 2 Oscar categories, Best Picture and Best Director. Does Dune stand a better chance? I'm taking a wait-and-see approach here. None of the actors from Dune are likely to be nominated, which would have helped legitimize a film like this with Oscar voters, and an adapted screenplay nomination isn't a foregone conclusion either. Still, after 2020's intimate field, I think the Academy is eager to get bigger movies into the Best Picture race. Villeneuve's fight to get his movies seen on the big screen may also resonate with streaming skeptical voters who see his stubbornness as a crusade worth backing. Is Dune Part 2 a sure thing? Viewers who watch Dune expecting a complete experience may be thrown for a loop when the title card comes up. This isn't Dune, it's Dune Part 1. Villeneuve has split Herbert's book roughly in half, meaning that several of the significant character arcs are just getting started when this film comes to a close. And though Zendaya is plastered all over the marketing as the female lead, it's really Ferguson who gets that spotlight. Outside of a few dreamy visions of what's to come, Zendaya's character doesn't factor into the story in a big way just yet. Villeneuve intends to make Dune a 2-parter and is working on the screenplay for the sequel, but Warner Brothers still hasn't technically greenlit it. The studio has tried the 2-film gambit before, splitting Stephen King's adaptation into halves, but those films opened 2 years apart, and a prospective Dune sequel would take likely far longer to mount. It may also concern the studio that It Chapter 2 made some $225 million less worldwide than the first film, despite an influx of big stars. Well, it just wasn't as good as the first one. Perhaps Warner Brothers is taking a wait-and-see approach, too, and watching the Dune box office before pulling the trigger on a second film, but the benchmarks of success look very different during a pandemic and a simultaneous streaming run. With a planned HBO Max spin-off series focused on the Bene Gesserit, a secretive all-female group that counts Ferguson's and Rampling's characters among its acolytes, I'm surprised that the studio won't firmly commit to a sequel now, if only to engineer some momentum ahead of the film's release. It would also cue audiences to expect an unfinished story at the end of Dune, which rockets through a couple of higher-octane climaxes before landing on a somewhat muted denouement. Villeneuve does plenty of teasing. Many major events to come are glimpsed, as if the movie can't wait to get to the good stuff. But how long a wait will that prove to be? All very interesting questions. I mean, as you know, Warner Brothers dinged this channel. I actually had a copyright strike against this channel when I reviewed the screenplay, which I thought was terrific. It was by Eric Roth, John Spates, and director Villeneuve himself. And I loved it. I mean, as a fan, you know, Dune is one of those things that for me, I've talked about this on the channel before, it's one of those things for me that's always been a constant in my life. I told you all when I joined the Sci-Fi Book Club when I was 10 years old, Dune was one of the first books I picked up, but I didn't read it until probably the 6th grade. And again, I was captivated by it. I think that anybody who reads science fiction, you have to read the great canonical works of sci-fi. I mean, look, I love my trashy novels as well as, or as much as the next person, but you really do need to read the classics of the genre, sort of the cornerstones of the genre in order to really understand it. And I believe that Dune was one of those books. Obviously, it's not even presented like your standard written narrative, and it's just something that I've had as part of my DNA since I was 12. And I've thought about it, and I've subsequently read all 6 of Herbert's novels. Of course, there's Dune, there's Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, and Chapter House Dune, all worth reading. And then there's dozens of the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson books, which I have not bothered to read. I mean, to me, Dune is such a product of Frank Herbert's imagination that I'm like, do I need to see anything other than that? I don't know. I'm really looking forward to this movie. I think it looks incredible, And I think every review that I've read has talked about how incredible it is. Now, I'm going to bring a guest on, although they're not here yet. I'm going to make sure that they heard from me, that they know that it's all good. Yes. So, hey, guest, if you're watching the show, why don't you come on with me? And we have some very important, long in the making, we have to have a conversation. Although I'm still waiting for this person. So we'll see if this person shows up. But I'm very excited about Dune. I have to say that despite, my God, God himself is throwing storms at New York to curtail the release of Tango Shalom, a movie that is very godly. It's been very difficult to deal with that, to see that happening. But, I guess everything is everything's for the best. You know what else is for the best? We have a guest. And I'm going to just bear with me for a moment when I'm going to get our guest. I have to make sure he can hear me. And you know him, you love him. And I'm going to bring him into the show because there's something we gotta find out about. We gotta talk about it. And I, for one, I need to go to the source. I need to go to the person, the man who knows more about this than anyone I know. You know him. You love him. Please welcome Stubble McShave to the show. Stubble, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
I'm very good. I am very good. Now, we have something very important to discuss, and I don't have an opinion about this until I've heard you weigh in. So why don't you tell us why I'm having you come on the show right now, and what is it that has occurred this week?
I don't know. Maybe it's a teaser trailer that I have been waiting for some time now.
Hey, can you crank up the volume a little bit on your? That's probably better.
Do you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's better. Maybe.
Yeah.
So what is it that they released a teaser trailer for, Stubble?
Yeah, they released a teaser trailer for the Wheel of Time TV series.
And
Season 1.
What did you think of it?
Going into it, I was 90% excited and 10% dreading what I was going to see. But I was pretty pleased with it. I think it turned out pretty good.
Pretty good. That is not the ringing endorsement I expected to hear from you, Stubble.
Okay, but I don't do those exuberant things.
Is that because you're Swedish?
I really liked it.
Okay, that's better. You really liked it, because I like to live vicariously through other people as well, and I expect to live vicariously through you because again, Wheel of Time is a blind spot in my fandom. So you did send me the first book, which I'm going to read before the series starts. So when does the series? When does it debut?
It debuts 19th November.
Now, give us a little bit about, you thought it was good. What were some of your impressions? Did you like the way the actors looked? Was it the way you envisioned it to be? How do you think they've translated the world so far from what you've seen? I know it's only a teaser trailer.
Yeah, well, they changed quite a bit, and I'm kind of happy that they changed a lot of things because I read it so many times. I want something new. It's the same story, but they're changing some of the details, so it will be a surprise for me as well. But it seems like they're staying true to the characters and the main plot. Then there's changes made to accommodate for it being a visual medium and not a book. For example, you have the Aes Sedai, the magic users. In the books they don't have colored clothing. They have any clothing of any color, but in the books you're in the person's head and they think, oh, it's they're of the yellow Aja, and that has implications. But in a visual medium you must see it. You can't hear everyone thinking what everyone is all the time. You have to show it. So yeah.
Is there anything that disappointed you?
Not really. No. There was one scene where you saw that it was a TV budget. It wasn't a 200 million movie budget. It was a TV budget, but in general, it looked high budget for TV.
That's good.
Yeah.
Did you like how the actors looked? Do you think that it was well cast?
Yeah, I think so. There are some who don't like that some of the characters are, what should you call, light brown in the skin tone. But I don't know. I think they missed something in the books, because it's. I have the line here, right here, for that two girls. That's, Robert Jordan never said it right out that this is how this person looks and this is how this person looks. It was more. Many people default to their own experience. So everyone thinks it's a European, English countryside people. But I'm just going to read one line where the two girls are. So it says, Egwene stood a few paces behind the wisdom, watching it intently, of a height with Nynaeve and with the same dark coloring. And that's the only time they're described.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with any of that kind of thing. I mean, it's if the character's a good character and they're portrayed well, I'm down with that. I mean, I think the thing about people, there's obviously this kind of talk is become a big thing in our society these days. But when I think you're talking about something like Lord of the Rings, it was very much Tolkien's vision of. In a way, it was an allegory for where he thought the UK was going, and it very much reflected the UK of Tolkien's time. Now, you could always go change that around, but I think that part of the story of Lord of the Rings really has to do with the area that it is set. I mean, Middle-earth is the UK, and everyone can argue, well, okay, it doesn't have to be that way, but I think the point of that story kind of does. But in something like Wheel of Time, I have no problem with any different kinds of people. I mean, wouldn't you think that there's different people on the planet Earth now, so why wouldn't there be different kinds of people on the Wheel of Time? Whatever that means, I still don't know.
And when I started reading the books in the mid-90s, I thought it was exciting, the fact, because now we're so divided, where either it's extreme on the one side or extreme on the other side. Because the society is that the magic users are women and they're the most powerful group, and so it tends to make the society more. For example, in the mid-90s here in our world, if we were going to go into a board meeting and there's a number of people, in the mid-90s we would assume that if we didn't know the rank of the individuals, it would be a man who was in charge. Here's it's flipped. So they are much more assertive and so on, women in this series. And I guess some people have a problem with that. But in the 90s, I liked the fact that they did that twist. Now it's a lot of, how society is right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand, but we live the way we live, so it's crazy. But so overall, though, you sound pretty pleased with what you've seen.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it's just a teaser. I was intrigued by it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I have difficulty discussing this with you, because yesterday I was in a stream that lasted for 11 and a half hours dissecting the teaser trailer.
I love that you were. I love that you did that.
In every detail. And so I don't know how to talk to you about it.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to talk to you about it either. But were you there for the entire 11 and a half hour stream?
No, I was there for 8 hours. then I had to go to bed because work next day and so on. Yeah.
Well, God
But
bless
I
you,
must
sir.
say, you hang that on me because I just wrote 2 or 3 letters and said some updates on the show, and you said I'm the most excited fan ever. No. I'm far from the most excited fan.
Well, you're the most excited fan that I know.
Okay.
Yeah, of all the people that I know, you're the biggest World of Time fan. Well, pardon me, Wheel of Time fan. Did I say World of Time? Wheel of Time fan by far that I know. Well, listen, I want to thank you for coming on. I wanted to get your take because I don't care about anyone else's take except yours.
Yeah. I liked it, and I see how they're changing things, and I think it's going to be good.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this and kind souls, gentle beings, however you identify, this is Stubble McShave coming at us from Sweden. Hopefully, we'll do a recap show. We've talked about doing a recap show. I'd like to do a review show. It'll be interesting because not knowing the show. I mean, I'm going to read the first book because I want to have that background. It's going to be fun to watch it with you and like review the episodes with you.
Yeah. And I can say that they have taken a lot from the second book as well. All the Aes Sedai stuff is from the second book.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for being here on Robservations, Stubble. Always good to have you. All right. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Everybody, that was the great Stubble McShave. I asked him to come on because I wanted to hear, I don't care about anyone else's opinion. I wanted to hear his opinion, so you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Now, a lot of people have asked me this weekend, if you live in L.A., tomorrow at the 4:30 show of Tango Shalom at the Landmark Theater in the West Side Pavilion, director Gabriel Bologna will be there. I will be there with the family. Mike Bodden will be there, and you're all invited. I noticed the tickets were selling out pretty quickly, but if you're interested and you're living in L.A., and if you've never met me before and want to come hang out, come see Tango Shalom. That's at 4:30 tomorrow at the Landmark. And if you are in New York and LA and want to see the film and you can't come tomorrow, there's still a few free tickets left. I think mostly for Sunday. But if you write to press, PRESS, at visionfilms.net, you can get some free tickets. There's still some left. Be sure and say that I sent you. Say that Rob Burnett sent me. And talk about what a great woman Kristen is. Say, Kristen, Rob Burnett says you're a great woman. And I would like Tango Shalom tickets, please. So if you're interested, they're still available, mostly for this Sunday. I'm not sure what the time is. The date would be, today's the 3rd, 4th, 5th. So, yeah. And there is more exciting news about the future of Tango Shalom beyond this weekend. And let's just say, without saying anything, America's hat. That's all I'll say. America's hat. Very exciting. It's very cool to have a movie I worked on in a movie theater. Last time I worked on one, the Paradox. Paradox was in a movie theater that I edited 6 years ago. So it's good to have this in a movie theater. I even had some kind notices. People singled out my editing, which was very nice. And Film Threat gave us a great review. So thank you to all the people that, by the way, I didn't pay anybody off. It was a very pleasant surprise. Now, I have to share this article with you. I have to share. There's a review of Dune that I wanted to share because it's a bad review. As a matter of fact, it's a very bad review, and but I wanted to read it because I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to talk about it because confirmation bias. I want to love Dune, and does everybody want to love Dune? I don't know. Clearly, David Ehrlich from IndieWire, the man who hates the Matrix, weighed in 5 hours ago. Denis Villeneuve's Denis Villeneuve's epic spice opera is a massive disappointment, he says. Venice, hype is the mind killer. I want to share this with you. In the end, Denis Villeneuve was all too right. Your television isn't big enough for the scope of his Dune. But that's only because this lifeless spice opera is told on such a comically massive scale that a screen of any size would struggle to contain it. Likewise, no story, let alone the misshapen first half of one, could ever hope to support the enormity of what Villeneuve tries to build over the course of these interminable 155 minutes. Someone mentions that time is measured differently on Arrakis, or the sheer weight of the self-serious portent that he pounds into every shot. For all of Villeneuve's awe-inducing vision, he loses sight of why Frank Herbert's foundational sci-fi opus is worthy of this epic spectacle in the first place. Such are the pitfalls of making a movie so large that not even its director can see around the sets. How big is Dune? We're talking slabs upon slabs of angular concrete as far as the eye can see, spaceships that seem to displace entire oceans when they emerge from the seabeds of Caladan, and sandworms so large they could eat the graboids from tremors like bar nuts. Even yoked kings Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista look like tabletop miniatures when placed against its backdrops, as if cinematographer Greg Fraser discovered a way to shoot deep focus and tilt shift at the same time. Now, can I just say, when I read this, I'm like, that's one of the reasons I read science fiction, is the grandeur and scope of it all. And the fact that somebody's brought this to film gets me very excited. I mean, I think that's the thing that, I read a book when I was in college, and I never forgot it. It was called The Hidden Dimension, and it's by a guy named Edward T. Hall. And basically, it was about our architectural spaces. Like, why is it we build rooms the size we build rooms out or in? What does that mean? Our actual architecture and the rooms that we exist in. It was a really fascinating look at that. And one of the things that I've always loved, me personally, about science fiction is I've always loved things with massive scope. One of the things like I have a huge love of is, like, in Japanese anime, the scope of everything. You watch Neon Genesis Evangelion, and Evangelion, everything is huge. Like, when you go into the nerve base, it's huge. I mean, the Evas are huge, and I like that. Monsters are huge. I love it when the scale of things is daunting, gigantic. It to me, it screams the future, that we have these things that have become so massive means our technology is increased, and there's something wondrous about that. And I've always loved that. So to me, that's exactly what I'm looking for a film. According to Mr. Ehrlich here, he thinks that's some kind of a drawback, and I can understand that, because traditionally, if you're looking for something that's more focused on, I think part of what Dune is about is the fact that, the universe becomes, there's a sense of awe and wonder that genre, specifically science fiction, has always instilled in me. And I think that awe and wonder is something that is hard to create in movies. Now, what's interesting is, we see now these giant vistas, cityscapes, whether it was Blade Runner, whether it was Akira or something. But you always know, the way they're presented, you always know that it's an effect. You cut to a cityscape and you kind of understand that. And I thought one of the really interesting things about Denis Villeneuve is there's something he's able to do. He creates, peak verisimilitude. There's a shot in Arrival where you see these clouds coming over the mountains where the main action is set, where the alien vehicle is. It looks beautiful. It looks absolutely realistic. You can't really, what you're looking at, I don't even know how I don't know how I would explain something like that, but it doesn't look like an effect shot, even though it's an effect shot, because we've never seen an alien spacecraft that large hovering over Earth. But the way it's done is it absolutely looks totally convincing. And I think that Dune, you could tell from the trailer when the effects are there, they look like it's real. And I don't know, to be honest, even as you know, I was the special effects supervisor for Dune. Special effects have been an interest of mine since I was a kid, having read every issue of Cinefex. I don't know how they do it. I don't know what it is. Like, if I was going to go into a room and try and pitch my vision for, say, this film project I'm working on, I'd say, like, look, I want the world to look like this and make it realistic. I love that, and I love that's peak verisimilitude to me, and to me, Dune looks like it has that, and because there's something when you have those realistic effects and they look so convincing, it just makes watching this stuff so much more fun. So I am in. I love that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of all of that. Oh, and the IndieWire has me subscribing because this article. Let's see. I guess it's like the old ass, gas, or grass. No one rides for free. I have to subscribe to IndieWire. Thank you. Close. So anyway, so why, for all of its unparalleled immensity, does watching Dune amount to the cinematic equivalent of being handed a novelty-sized check made out for $6? Why is the scope of Villeneuve's dream betrayed by the dull shallowness of its reality, to the point that his film's most astounding effects, which are every bit as tactile and transportive as those in Blade Runner 2049, feel more like optical illusions? Why does this Dune feel so small? The first and most fundamental problem is the screenplay, credited to heavyweight trio of Eric Roth, John Spates, and Villeneuve himself, that drills into Herbert's novel with all the thunder and calamity of a spice harvester, but mines precious little substance from underneath the surface. I didn't feel that way about the script. I'll be curious to see if he's correct here. And while it's not much of a shock that Denis Villeneuve hasn't succeeded where the likes of David Lynch and Alejandro Jodorowsky have already failed, his Dune is at least uniquely dispiriting, as the director of Prisoners and Cindy's and Arrival comes to this project with such a deep affinity for stories about transcending cyclical violence. Alas, that's really all this adaptation is allowed to be, as the source material is bisected in a way that punts all of Herbert's most resonant and psychedelically unstable ideas about the braided relationship between colonialism and chosen one narratives into a sequel that may never be made. It's hard to overstate how little actually happens in this Dune, which flows like an overture that's stretched for the duration of an entire opera. In stark contrast to the Lynch version, which immediately unpacks the Emperor's twisted scheme to weaken House Atreides by giving it control of the spice planet Arrakis, Villeneuve's film sees this story through the eyes of the family's young heir, Paul, and embraces the boy's awestruck confusion at moving to a desert world and learning that he was bred to be the white savior of its native people. Who will our next oppressor be? Zendaya asks in the introductory voiceover that Villeneuve gives her in lieu of a character to play. But the rest of the movie completely betrays that sting of suspicion. Well, obviously, if you have any knowledge of Dune, what might seem like a white savior trope in the beginning isn't that. And you find out that actually what's been going on are the machinations of the Bene Gesserit. And even the prophecies of Dune were made up and used to manipulate. So they're not real. And I think you need to understand that. You need to have some working knowledge of Dune before you can make these assumptions in a review, but okay. This much debated aspect of Dune is complicated in later installments of Herbert's series, but here it remains unchallenged. Paul is Jesus Christ as a eugenics experiment designed by space switch Charlotte Rampling, who paired Duke Atreides, a bearded and winsome Oscar Isaac, who gets to yell desert power several times, with a very special concubine, the ever-capable Rebecca Ferguson, and the Bedouin-coated Fremen of Arrakis are happy to accept this foreign twerp as their prophet. I mean, if you want to look at it that way, Bedouin-coated, I don't think they're coated at all. I think it's well known that Frank Herbert took a lot of his inspiration from Islam and, of course, the Middle East. I mean, it's not coded. It's not hidden. It's absolutely there for front and center for all to see. It helps that Chalamet is a natural fit in the role. The actor is something of a chosen one himself, a gawky New York kid who leveraged his internet boyfriend status into legitimate stardom, and Villeneuve helped steer him toward the location of a bird bone model descended from a line of sex mystics and Hemingways. Paul Atreides invented the blankness that Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter would later inherit, but Chalamet spices things up by making the character palpably out of his depth. As you would expect from a movie that features approximately 50% of the world's famous actors, casting isn't a problem here. Dune only falters when it comes to giving its cast something to do. Josh Brolin is all pugnacious charm as the beefy mentor with the heart of gold. He plays Gurney. But he's reduced to grist for the mill as soon as the action relocates to Arrakis, leaving only the shield technology he uses in his sparring matches with Paul as a legacy. The red and blue Rock'em Sock'em Robots effect is a big upgrade from how Lynch rendered the shields back in 84, which, by the way, I love the way the shields were rendered in 84. I thought it was so cool. But Villeneuve's disastrous choice to double down on it throughout the rest of the movie robs every subsequent action sequence of any beauty or believable sense of danger. I'd have to see this, but I can't believe that's true. Momoa is similarly likable as Swordmaster Duncan Idaho, but spends most of Dune trapped in Paul's insufferable dreams of the future, which are scattered throughout the story like ransom notes from a more exciting cut of the film. Well, I guess maybe if you know the story of Dune and where it's going to go, you wouldn't feel that way, but I don't know. The characters with less screen time make more of an impact, especially the gluttonous robber baron Harkonnens, who cede control of Arrakis only to go stronger in the shadows. Dave Bautista serves up from very large adult son energy as the second in command. David Dastmalchian is all sniveling creepiness as the Grand Vizier, and Stellan Skarsgård is the undisputed MVP as Baron Harkonnen himself, whose performance finally answers the question, what if the island of Dr. Moreau-era Marlon Brando could fly? But Dune, at its heart, is a film that eagerly flattens great actors like Chang Chen and Stephen McKinley Henderson into the wallpaper because it knows the scenery will have to do most of the heavy lifting. Patrice Vermette's astonishing and cavernous production design complements or enables the stagnant ultra-formalism that Villeneuve has produced since Incendies, and anyone who felt that Blade Runner 2049 could use 100% more aerial shots of ships flying above some unlivable futurescape will feel like they've died and gone to heaven. But Villeneuve's seismic world building is all tone and no melody. He spends precious minutes detailing the topography of Arrakis and the suits that allow people to survive its deserts, but devotes nary a moment to Duke Atreides' private concerns about the intergalactic feudalism that shapes his fate, or Paul's nebulous inner conflict over leaving his old world behind. That Star Wars and its blockbuster ilk have burned Herbert's sci-fi tropes into the collective unconscious should be an opportunity for a 20th century film like this, not an excuse. And yet Villeneuve's only move is to crank up the volume until the distortion makes it sound like you're experiencing something new, a tactic that has its upsides. Example, the Bene Gesserit's voice seemed like it's coming from inside your soul, but also leads Hans Zimmer to fall back on ethnographic wailing of his Gladiator-era scores, as if there's something wrong with that. By the way, Dead Can Dance is coming to Los Angeles, just an aside, but they are. Few composers would have been able to match the Lynch version's 1-2 punch of Brian Eno and Toto, but Zimmer just thumps around in the sand as if he wants the worms to eat us. Fear not, the sandworms do come. Well, you can read the rest of this if you want. I'll put the... it's interesting to me, this as Ehrlich's article on The Matrix goes. I just think that I think that a guy like this makes the mistake that many critics who criticize science fiction make. They don't like it. They don't like science fiction. And so all of the things that make us like science fiction, they just immediately reject out of hand. And not only do they reject it out of hand, but because they don't like it, they feel that that's some kind of a failing of the genre, that the genre should be blamed for them not liking a movie. And look, I understand that there's a lot of people that have no interest in Flights of Fancy and can't see the forest through the trees. I get that. I've been listening to those kinds of critics my whole life. And I think that Ehrlich's take on Dune was like his take on The Matrix was kind of just bunk. And I disagree with everything he's saying in this review, but only because I want Dune to be good. I already have a confirmation bias myself. I want it to be great. But I've loved Denis. I loved Sicario. I loved Blade Runner 2049. I loved Arrival. I wish they had kept the original ending, but I loved Arrival. And I feel that he really understands the soul of those of us who love science fiction. You know, I mean, part of it is the awe and wonder that the future can bring, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I'm very much looking forward to this film. I can't wait to see it. And I don't think anyone who's watching me right now feels any differently than I do. Because we want it to be great. Yes. Yes. I know I've been not here the last couple days because I was preparing for Tango Shalom and getting it out there, and I was making a lot of trailers. As you heard, I voiced the TV spots, which was fun to do. And it's great. It's great to see people liking the movie and that it's out there and people are digging it. So As I said, if you're interested, come to the Landmark tomorrow. Tickets were going fast for the 4:30 show, but feel free to get them and join in. Come say hello. We're going to be hanging out afterwards, I'm sure, and it'll be fun. So, yeah, there we go. Now, since I haven't been here in a while, I'm going to jump back in and read some letters from you beautiful people. And you are indeed beautiful people. So, very, very exciting. Let's see. Mike, hang on. I've got to get your. I don't know why I accidentally clicked off of your letters. And here we go. Let's see who's here first. Hedy Lamar. You gossip monger, you. Hedy Lamar is here. Greetings, yell and tellers. I'd like to somewhat defend these impossible premise shows and their apparent lack of plans. I know people say Lost had no plan, but I've heard conflicting accounts from those involved with the show, so I won't make any affirmations there, but why does Lost always get picked on? Well, because it had the greatest audience portrayal of any television show ever made. The final season was ridiculous, and it didn't even focus on where the show should have gone. I mean, the whole thing was setting up the deal between Locke and, of course, Jack, faith and science and all that. And, you know, as far as Lost goes, here's what I thought Lost was supposed to be. When I was watching it, I have to say I really enjoyed Lost until the final season, where I really wanted to punch my TV many times. I thought that the island in Lost, because the whole show is, what is the island? It never answers that question, and it asks that question almost every episode. Why are we here? What is going on here? And I wanted it to be something like, and again, I'm giving you what I thought it was. I thought the island was God's thumbprint on creation, the world. And the island, if you manage to get to the island, it has been a crucible. And going through having the experience of being on that island, and then when you get off the island, whatever you've learned somehow, you're supposed to convey that to the rest of humanity. Maybe through work, maybe through novels, maybe through art. I don't know what it was, but that's kind of what I thought it was. And at the end of the show, it doesn't bother to answer anything. Why is the island there? Why are the people there? How did the plane get pulled down? Like, I understand that the machinations they dealt with, but where did the island come from? And it bothered me because they didn't know. And they would tell you, well, it could be many things to many people. I'm like, no. When you're telling a story, tell me what it is. You as the authors or whatever, you've got to tell me what's going on in this story. Anyway, I'm going to go back. Why does Lost always get picked on? This is Hedy Lamar's letter. Mythology aside, it had great characters and plots for the most part, as did Battlestar Galactica, which had no plan and a disappointing ending, according to many. I loved the end of Battlestar Galactica. Loved it. Yet no one talks about that. Anyway, let's talk about the shows that don't have a plan from the start. Can you really fault them for not having a detailed manifesto that lays everything out? Yes, I can. Bear in mind that network programming doesn't get those quick renewals that HBO shows or Amazon did with Wheel of Time. They have to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So coming up with a cool initial premise is what matters at the start. Besides that, imagine coming up with a great idea, writing an amazing outline for 5 seasons with all these interesting characters and plot, and whoops, low ratings, canceled. All of that creative work you poured into, the blood, sweat, and tears goes down the drain. The show is probably not going to get picked up elsewhere. Plus, the network owns the IP now, so you can't continue on your own. Remember when Universal had all these plans for their new Dark Monster universe, which collapsed when the first one failed? As our pal John Campea has said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. All this being said, if the show does well and finds an audience, there definitely needs to be some longer-term planning, but I think we shouldn't be too harsh on the shows that don't have everything laid out at the start. We can be critical of those franchises that do know for a fact they're getting multiple films and thus have no excuse for not plotting it out, like a certain trilogy. But those are rare cases. I've rambled on about this too long. I'm going to go watch The Rocketeer for the first time. Ooh, Hedy Lamar, write in and tell us, what did you think of The Rocketeer? I think it's a delightful film. Here's the thing, though. when you're being told a story, any of us imagination connoisseurs, we're fiends for good stories. I mean, we snort up. We snort that shit up. We want it. That's what's good. And we get invested when the stories are great and they have these impossible premises when you're like, oh my God, this sounds so great. You just assume, like, how do you not know the end? I think it's really important. Screenwriters, I mean, Stephen King has talked about the fact before that he didn't know how things are going to end. Like, I remember, I think it was The Green Mile. When he started writing The Green Mile, when he starts writing his books, he doesn't know how they're going to end frequently. But I think when it comes to something like a television show, you should know where you're going. And hopefully, because where you're going is going to inform how you get there. So I think knowing the end of the story is really, really important. Now, in the case of Manifest, which I'm going to talk about probably more this weekend, Manifest is a show that I think has a premise that can't be solved. That's the best impossible premises, like Lost. You can't answer it because you don't know. Not only do the writers not know, but in answering it, you diminish the story as a whole unless it's really compelling. And with Lost, they just make up more shit to make it more and more and more and more compelling, and you're waiting to get an answer, and it's never coming, but they've strung you along. I hate that. I think that that's such a betrayal. You're letting your audience down. The very people that are watching your show, you're letting them down. And when you do that, that's just, I mean, I know it's not like killing a person, but it's really you're taking away their time and their thoughts and everything. And if you don't take them someplace good, why bother? That's what I think. I mean, I hate that. Like with Manifest, I'm like, they can't solve this story because it's not great. They just can't do it. Can't do it. So, yeah. But I guess I think differently than you. I mean, you can enjoy it, but I think ultimately I want to be fulfilled by the story that's been told. I think it's important to me. Hey, Rob, this next letter comes from just Steven. Hey, Rob, you and everyone else are getting me super excited about Shang-Chi. You should be super excited because it's great. I bet there is a 10% chance that it'll become the biggest opening of the pandemic era. I think so, too, especially if word of mouth kicks in. I doubt there's any chance it won't become the highest opening for the Labor Day weekend, which is still held by Rob Zombie's Halloween. It does feel like we've always doubted the Asian, black, and female audiences. Look at how much Crazy Rich Asians made. It was number one for 3 weekends and was the biggest romantic comedy in 10 years. Girls Trip made $140 million on a $19 million budget and got an A+ cinema score, and even Bridesmaids made $288 million back in 2011. Look at how much those Twilight movies made. All 5 films made over $3 billion. Even all 3 50 Shades movies made over $1.3 billion. Over 20 years, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was released. It made $213 million and won 4 Oscars. Anyway, Rob, I don't think we should doubt the Asian audience for this one. My prediction for Shang-Chi's opening weekend, I'll go as high as $65 million for its opening weekend. Have a good day. Well, Steven, I had guessed on the John Campea show it was going to open domestically to $50 million, but I might go there with you. I think that a lot of people are really liking the film for its own sake, and it doesn't even need, if it wasn't part of the MCU, I'd still love the movie. I'd be like, that was a great fantasy film. I really enjoyed that. And I think you're right. I think people are going to go see it. Word of mouth is going to get out there, and people are really going to enjoy Shang-Chi. I mean, what's not to love? I thought the movie was just enchanting from the first 10 minutes. And I liked it a lot. I loved what am I saying? I loved Shang-Chi. I loved it. So I'm down. I'm right there with you, Steven. Right there with you. Let's see. What do we got here? What's going on here? Guy Broyles writes in and says, "What's up, Roberto? I'm a fan of yours since Heroes with the Big Guy." Oh, John Schnepp would have loved Shang-Chi. Anyway, to the point. This may not be the most interesting subject for all the fans, but the ones who fancy themselves artists, I think it will be. Has the Burnettwork ever considered selling merch through TeePublic, Teespring, or a similar platform? We do. You can buy merch. It's in every Facebook. On the videos, below the videos, it shows our merch store. I'm proud of our merch. I think some of it's really good. I think a system in which fans can submit designs to be approved for merch would result in some cool RMB, PGS, and Burnettwork merch, which would be a good thing for the RMB empire and the fan base. Requiring approval of terms and conditions when submitting a design would take care of any royalties issues. It would be a cool thing just to see your design for sale to the whole fan base, representing the Burnettwork. It'd be a completely transparent thing, and where it's understood the fun of possibility of getting a design in the store is the idea. Members of the PGS are the ideal fans to come up with cool logo ideas and such, in my opinion. Using a site like the one I mentioned would be perfect. They offer lots of items to put each design on. Using Teespring, the Burnettwork could set the price points, each item, and then set the price higher for profit on each one. I don't know of another YouTube channel that lets fans submit designs, then shows the new approved designs for sale periodically on the show, letting the fan base know the designer's name and such. That would also be a way to let fans know about merch without the grimy feeling of advertising. Laugh out loud. I think it'd be a cool thing that would produce some wicked cool Burnettwork and Post-Geek Singularity merch. What do you think? Well, Guy, I think that's a great idea. I'm perfectly open if somebody sends me a cool design that I like. I mean, half the stuff that's on that, it's people that have sent me designs that I like. We sell very little of our merch, but if people want to do that, I'm totally open. If you make a cool design, the problem is, some people will make a design that I want tweaked or something, and I feel bad if I'm giving people notes. But I throw it out to you. Anyone, no matter who it is, anybody can submit a design. If I like it, I'll put it in the store. I don't have a problem with that. I think it'd be a lot of fun, Guy. I think it's a really, really good idea. And you're right. I think it'd be fun. I mean, it's like when Tom Jr. Jackson said, we are all goof people. I'm like, oh, that's got to be a shirt. So, I mean, I loved that. Listen, this is not going to be a long episode of Robservations, so I'm just going to jump in and see what you guys are saying. What are you saying? I'll see. We'll see. Willow says, if Dune underperforms, do you think Warner Brothers will still greenlight a sequel due to the extenuating circumstances? I would rather that they delay the film further and give it an exclusive theatrical release rather than day and date on HBO Max. Well, Willow, I would too, but the movie's locked and loaded. It's coming out on the 15th. In a week and a half, or was it a week? It was a week from today, right? The 15th. Yeah, I guess it would be 2 weeks from today, and it's opening all over the world. It doesn't open here until October, but it's coming. It's coming. So yeah, there you go. But I would rather have an exclusive release. I don't think anybody should see Dune from what I've been reading on TV. They need to see it in a giant theater, preferably in IMAX. That's how I'm going to see it. But yeah, I would much prefer. You're absolutely right. Connie Sang, it's very funny. We do have, I think that between Willow, Connie, and Zephyr Chan, we do have the three musketeers of Chinese women for this channel. And I love all three of you. And Connie works, I have to point out that Connie is the experiential engagement. That's her title. She is the experiential engagement person for Harman International. That's a subsidiary of Samsung that oversees JBL. So, she's always sending equipment and things to us, and as thanks for the job we do, I guess. I mean, Connie, she was the one that made possible when we gave away the JBL soundbar, the $1,000 JBL soundbar. We had that giveaway. She was the one that made sure that happened. So thank you, Connie. Connie says, I'm on my way to see Tango Shalom. We must celebrate over dinner soon. Yes, Connie, we should. By the way, if you like the movie and want to see it again, I invite everybody to come to the West Side Pavilion tomorrow at 4:30 and see the show of Tango Shalom. And even if that show sells out, come down for the next show and come meet us when we come out. Tango Shalom is 115 minutes and 30 seconds long. So it's supposed to start at 4:20. So I guess it'll be over at what, 6:15 and 30 seconds or something. So why not? And if you want to come there, we'll all hang out and get a few drinks. My man Mike, Mexican Iron Man. I love Mexican Iron Man. Says, I can't wait for Dune. I hope you're well, Rob. Congrats on the opening weekend of Tango. Well, Mexican Iron Man, Mike, thank you for the fond wishes for the film. I love you, man. And thanks for the support of the channel. Appreciate that. And I look forward to when we stream next. Sheriff Carl sends in a tip. Sheriff Carl says, woke up yesterday to the news that ABBA are in fact releasing a new music. Can you believe this? After like 40 years? Yes. ABBA, there's a video that dropped of craziness, but ABBA's putting out a new album. Then saw Shang-Chi at the Oak Tree, and then I got to smoke a joint and play the new Iron Maiden album. Shinjutsu, is that what it's called? Wow. Wondrous fucking times, my man. It's a great record from the greatest band ever. Well, Sheriff Carl, I think we're going to have to talk about that on Midnight Metal tonight. Can you believe that there is, in fact, a new Iron Maiden record that has come down? That's I mean, amazing. I haven't heard any of it. I gotta listen to it. But yes, we're getting metal tonight. I promise not to be sloppy drunk. For those of you who have expressed concern about my drinking ways, you're right. I was using Midnight Metal as an excuse to drink because I don't really drink much anymore. And obviously you can tell because I was getting hammered. So I promise I won't get that hammered anymore in Midnight Metal. It sucks. Jutsu 369 subscribed to the channel, and so did Butterspark. Well, thanks. Thanks, you too. Lewis Yu, our friend Lewis Yu is here. Sends in a tip. Congratulations on the release of Tango Shalom, Rob. Best wishes on the screening tomorrow. Well, thank you. The screenings today, I noticed the 1:30 show at the Westside Pavilion was actually sold out, which was pretty cool. I mean, you gotta keep making that. A movie is made or broken by how many people go see it, and we had not a lot of money to promote the film. It's very grassroots, so anyone that goes to see Tango Shalom, you can affect the future of the film. Thank you so much for those of you who bought tickets or are supporting. I heard that is with Mikey Lido, maybe. Together, they're seeing it at the Empire 25. I wish I could be there. I wonder what it's like. Terje from Norway says, I like Flights of Fancy. I like science fiction. I like everything out of this world. Tickets secured under 2 weeks until IMAX Dune. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Terje, you got to call and tell us what it's like. We're going to have you on, right? You're going to give us a review. You made a promise. You made a promise. Mega Reacts sends in a super chat and says, I have not seen a movie in the theater since Infinity War. Wow. Very excited to see Dune in IMAX 3D. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the mind killer. It really is. Dalton Johnson says, are we getting metal tonight? Yes, we're going to get metal. We're going to talk about the new Iron Maiden record. And can share with you the experiences of going to see Tango Shalom. Dalton Johnson, thank you for asking if we're going to get metal tonight. The answer is yes, we are. Yes, we are. Alexander Wilson, how are you, sir? Alexander Wilson says, Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul wrote as they went and didn't plan ahead. Gould said that he didn't expect Saul to have a close relationship to Breaking Bad, but that's how the show unfolded as they went. Thoughts? Well, to me, you know what? The thing about Breaking Bad, I mean, it's true. There's nothing to say that television can't be iterative because they were going to kill Jesse, and they ended up not. You know, you have to be able to, feint and drift and all that. But it also wasn't a mystery. Breaking Bad, they could have, the way it opens with the meth lab Winnebago and with, Walter White and all that, they could have, if they explained where they were, and that could have just been a standalone episode if they wanted to do it. So I don't mind that. But when you start a show with the premise itself is a mystery, why are these people here? What is going on? Why did this happen? I think you have an obligation to have an answer for that mystery. At least I would hope so. I mean, shouldn't we? One never knows. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have a lot of things to catch up on, but I wanted to do a show today. I almost canceled today's show. I'm going to try not to do that anymore now that Tango Shalom is out. I'm going to try and stay more consistent for everybody. I mean, we have more subscribers than we've ever had, and I think I owe it to you subscribers to be here and to really start growing the channel. We're going to have more of her Post-Geek Singularity All-Star conversations. She talked to Tom Jr. Jackson. She talked to a number of other people, and I'll be putting those up. And Scott Richardson and her actually reviewed Tango Shalom, which I admit is a bit self-serving to put a review like that on my own channel. But you know what? It's my channel, and I can party if I want to. So I'm going to put that up later today. I want to thank and Scotty for doing it. Now, Steve Foley and Scotty have done a couple of Star Trek shows, which I'm also going to put up if you still want me to. I know it's been a while. It's been like a week, so I apologize for not getting them up. But I love this. I love what people are doing. And, you know, we do have a creator program where it's described on the website. So if you want to put shows up and you don't want to have to wait to get 4,000 hours or 1,000 subscribers before you get monetized, we split the revenue, do revenue sharing. Things don't make that much money when you're not doing a live show, but still, I'm really appreciating it. I love hearing from all of you imagination connoisseurs. It's great. It's very great. So again, I want to thank and I want to thank everybody she's been talking to, and I want to thank Stephen Foley for putting these things together, and for, you know what, this is just the best community on the web. It really is. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of the Post-Geek Singularity, I'm proud of you, and that's why I will always be robcasting at you. So thank you for all of what you do. And again, tomorrow, impromptu Post-Geek Singularity meetup, the 4:30 show of Tango Shalom at the West Side Pavilion at the Landmark Theater there. Last I looked, I think the theater was about half full. I'll be there. The great Elizabeth Gwendolyn Bell, the ace, will be there with her mother and her mother's husband, Murray. And then, of course, you'll meet Zoe Trope, and Sophie will be there all as well. So it's going to be a fabulous, fun time. Hopefully you'll all like the movie, because if you've ever wanted to see an indie Jewish spiritual quest family dance comedy fable, well then, Tango Shalom's your movie. And on that note, I would say to all of you, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, beautiful imagination connoisseurs, have a better day. Come to the West Side Pavilion if you're in LA tomorrow at 4:30. Come watch Tango Shalom. We're not planning on doing an official Q&A afterwards, because we didn't call the theater and say, hey, we're coming. But, you know, we could do an impromptu Q&A. There's a bar outside, and we can all hang out, all hold court, you know, and I can regale you with stories of the making of the film. Hope to see you there. It's the first time I've ever done any kind of or asked anybody to show up for that wasn't John Campia's 100 million views party, which was a lot of fun. So hopefully, if you live in the LA area, come tomorrow to the Landmark at the West Side Pavilion 4:30 show of Tango Shalom. And on that note, I would say to all of you, have a better day. I will see you tonight on Midnight Metal with